Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. The convoy came in slow, engines growling like they didn't want to be there. Dust kicked up in the orange glow of sunset, swirling between the Humvees and flatbeds, like the city itself was exhaling. Up ahead, the bridge cut across a wide boulevard, 6 lanes, median dividing the east and west, and it stretched like a throat begging to be choked. We were the hands doing the choking. The streetlights flickered on as we rolled to a stop, casting our shadows long across the sandbag walls someone else had already built. Everything was set, like we were just actors showing up late to a scene that had already started. Machine gun nests already dug in, M240s and Mod Deuces mounted and leveled, pallets of ammo waiting under thick tarps, marked with stenciled numbers and red tape. I hadn't even stepped off the truck before I got that tight feeling in my gut. The one that says something's wrong, but you don't know what yet. Delaney was already barking at people, the way he always did. Off the trucks, secure your post, eyes downrange. I slipped on my gloves, adjusted my belt, and dropped off the tailgate with the others. Ramirez, a good guy from El Paso, nudged me as we jogged toward our position. "You think they're serious about this no-crossing shit?" he asked. "You heard the brief," I muttered. "No exceptions, civilian or not." He shook his head. "Feels wrong, like historically bad wrong." He wasn't wrong. We were stationed on the eastern edge of the bridge, what used to be an overlook spot with benches and concrete planters, the kind of place that probably had flower beds and food trucks before all this. Now it was sandbags and steel. My nest faced west toward downtown. The skyscrapers looked like teeth in silhouette, black against the last gold sliver of sun. Between them, the wide avenue funneled straight into us. No turns, no exits, no cover. Just 3/4 of a mile of dead man's corridor. Our setup wasn't subtle. 2 tanks sat behind us on the slope of the bridge. Abrams, real beasts, each with their 50 cal riding shotgun and coaxials ready to rip. Their crews hadn't even dismounted, just helmets poking from open hatches, eyes scanning the skyline. I settled in behind the M240B, adjusting the tripod and feeding the belt through. Private Juno helped me run a test pull. He was quiet as usual, but solid. Ramirez stood lookout, and Clem, poor bastard, got stuck hauling ammo from the trucks. Behind us, others were setting up claymores, sighting mortars, digging trenches for casings. I watched one guy already layering his gloves with duct tape, prepping for the heat of the brass. It didn't feel like protest prep. It felt like siege prep. The orders were repeated over comms like they thought we didn't hear the first 10 times. "You are not to allow any unauthorized individuals to cross this line. No vehicles, no personnel, no exceptions. Do not engage unless the target enters the funnel. You will hold this position. No elaboration, no explanation. Just hold this line." And you know what? Most of us obeyed because that's what soldiers do. You follow orders. You trust the brass knows something you don't. Still, that didn't stop people from whispering between bunkers. What kind of riot needs two tanks? You hear anything on the news? My wife said people downtown were acting weird. Acting weird was the phrase of the day. The air changed just as the sun dipped below the skyline. Warm one moment, then suddenly dry, dead still. The kind of still where you notice how loud your own boots are. The kind where sound doesn't echo. It just stops. Somewhere behind the buildings, sirens started wailing, but they weren't moving, just stuck. One long scream that never got closer, never faded away, just held. Juno glanced up, squinting toward the horizon. You feel that? He asked. I did, but I didn't answer, because that was the moment we saw the first silhouette. It was a man, alone, shirtless, walking down the median like he had nowhere else to go. He was limping, kinda sideways, like one leg was dragging something heavy. He wasn't waving, he wasn't running, he wasn't yelling, just walking. Others followed. A woman, two kids, a man with what looked like a broken arm hanging behind him, a whole group, like evacuees after a hurricane. But they weren't looking around. They weren't crying. They weren't calling out for help. They were focused, moving with one direction, one purpose, right toward us. Delaney got the call over comms. His voice came over the net, tight and clipped. Do not fire. Repeat, do not fire. Eyes on. Let them enter the funnel. I clicked back twice to confirm and tried not to let my fingers shake. More were coming. Dozens now, filling the street, climbing over wrecked cars and debris like it wasn't even there. Some were naked. Some had clothes soaked in blood or piss. Some looked like they'd been walking for days. Crusted faces, broken bones that didn't seem to bother them. Blank stares like their minds had already left the body behind. Juno swallowed hard. Jesus Christ, what happened to them? Ramirez raised his rifle but didn't fire. Hey, you see their eyes? Look at their fucking eyes. I leaned forward, glassy, fixed, hungry. Still, we didn't shoot, because no one said the word yet. Because saying it made it real. It was the way they moved that made it real. Not fast, not slow, just wrong. Stiff joints that didn't bend right, limbs swinging too wide, too loose, like the tendons were already half gone. The guy in the front, the shirtless one, he had a bone sticking out of his shin, and he didn't even limp, just kept walking, dragging a trail of blood behind him like it was nothing. I don't know who broke silence first. Maybe it was Ramirez, muttering under his breath. This ain't a protest. This ain't drugs. This is... Eyes up. Delaney snapped over comms. Let him come. Wait for the line. We waited, because we were told to. But that line, it kept getting closer. 50 meters, 35. Then one of them ran. No build-up, just broke into a sprint like someone flipped a switch, sprinting right at our position, eyes locked dead ahead. I yelled before I even thought about it. One's charging. What the fuck do I do? Hold fire, Delaney barked. 10 meters. Ramirez screamed something beside me. I don't remember what. And the first gun went off. Not ours. One of the guys on the far west nest. A burst from the M240. The crowd didn't flinch. It just erupted. They broke into a full stampede. Dozens of them, then hundreds, barreling straight into the funnel like it was instinct, trampling over the first bodies. No hesitation, no fear. Weapons free came through the net. Light 'em up. I squeezed the trigger and the M240 kicked into life, low and mean. Belt fed smooth, and Juno kept it rolling without a word. Tracers streaked down the avenue. We dropped the first dozen easy, but they didn't stop. Bullets shredded torsos. Legs flew, heads popped. One guy took a full burst to the chest and kept moving another 3 steps before collapsing. I saw a woman take a round to the throat, her neck geysering black blood. And she still grabbed for the sandbags before the second burst cut her down. Ramirez fired his rifle next to me until it clicked dry. Then he reloaded with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "They don't fucking fall," he yelled. "They fall," I shouted back. "Just gotta hit 'em harder." The tanks hadn't moved yet. The gunners must have been waiting for clearance. Either that, or they were stunned like the rest of us. Then, with no warning, the Abrams on our left boomed. A high explosive shell ripped down the funnel and detonated in the middle of the crowd. The concussion hit our teeth. Smoke ballooned out into the night. When it cleared, dozens gone, torn in half, parts of people stuck to building walls. The second tank followed suit, blasting a shot farther up the street, sending bodies sailing. It was a massacre, and still, they came. We went through our first belt in less than a minute. Juno swapped it out, slapping in a fresh one as my hands started to blister from the heat bleeding off the grips. Clem ran past, dragging a crate, shouting over the fire. "Need help back left. They're pushing hard on Bravo team." I spared a glance, saw the leftmost gun nest starting to buckle. Bodies stacked 3 deep were acting like cover for the next wave. The gunners couldn't even see what they were firing at anymore. "That's not natural," Juno muttered. He was right. They weren't just climbing over the dead. They were using them, like stepping stones. One got close, too close. A teenage boy in a hoodie, no shoes, blood slicked down his face, half his scalp gone. He came crawling under the smoke line, got within 10 meters of the bags before Ramirez dropped him with 3 shots to the chest. He hit the pavement hard, wheezing like a broken accordion. Then he got back up. That was when Ramirez froze. I had to shoot the kid myself. Center mass didn't work. Headshot did. Afterward, there wasn't time to think about it. The avenue was packed shoulder to shoulder with people. No formation, just weight, endless, convulsing weight. It looked like a riot from a distance. It looked like apocalypse up close. We started calling them what they were finally. Zombies. Hostiles are fucking zombies. Delaney didn't respond to that one. Not directly. Command says continue holding. Do not abandon post. Resupply incoming. That was it. Keep shooting. Keep holding. No matter what. At some point, the sky went black. Not from smoke, not yet, but from the sun finally giving up. Streetlights took over. Orange pools of light lit up the piles of dead, making the blood shine like oil. We stopped counting kills. I noticed Juno's hands had gone raw, blistered and bleeding from dragging hot brass and slapping belts into the feed tray. The barrel was glowing red, not metaphorically. I could see the heat waves rising off it. "Swap the barrel," I shouted. He grabbed the asbestos mitts and yanked the locking lever. Smoke hissed out like a burst tire. We dropped in a fresh tube and got back to work. Someone down the line started screaming. Not in pain, just screaming. I looked over and saw a guy on the far right nest standing on the sandbags, firing his rifle straight down into the mass below, screaming like he'd gone blind. The whole right flank was swarmed. Too many bodies, not enough bullets. They were climbing. One made it over, then two. Then the nest went quiet. A second later, the tanks adjusted. Both of them rotated to cover the breach. Coaxial machine guns spun up, and in seconds the gap was filled with lead. The overrun section turned into mulch. Screams stopped, but so did the gunners. Back in my nest, we were still holding, barely. My arms were numb from recoil. Juno looked pale, eyes locked on the ammo belt like he couldn't blink anymore. Ramirez wasn't firing anymore. He was sitting back against the sandbags, holding his rifle in one hand, a cigarette in the other. His hands were trembling so hard he couldn't light it. He looked at me like he'd just woken up from a bad dream. "They weren't even armed," he whispered. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just went back to shooting. It got quiet. Not all at once, just gradually, like the night took a breath. No more screams, just the hiss of hot barrels, the click of spent guns being checked for misfires, and the low animal groans coming from beyond the smoke. That smoke didn't drift either. It hung, caught in the streetlight glow, thick and black like wet charcoal. We could still hear them out there, shuffling, dragging themselves across the asphalt, moaning through shredded throats. But for just a minute, nobody was firing. That's when the fear really set in. Juno collapsed onto his back behind the sandbags. He didn't say a word, just stared at the stars like he couldn't believe they were still there. Ramirez was rocking back and forth, not fast, not dramatic, just a slow, unconscious rhythm, like he was trying to calm some part of himself that wouldn't shut up. I took that moment to check the feed tray, wiped some of the carbon out with a rag that used to be a shirt. My fingers were raw. The gloves hadn't helped. I'd burned through the palm leather, dragging brass into the corner like I was scooping snow. Every few seconds, we'd hear something slam against the bodies at the front of the funnel. A thud, a crunch, the slap of meat on pavement. They were still coming, just slower now, like they were testing us, measuring our breath. I called in the count. Emplacement 2, 2 belts left, 1 full crate. "Copy," Delaney answered. His voice was hoarse. "Resupply en route. Stay tight." I didn't bother asking from where. We all knew nobody was coming through that city to reach us. Not in time. Then the second wave hit. No warning. Just noise. All the noise. Like a levee broke somewhere and poured bodies into the street. The smoke parted, and there they were. Not hundreds this time, thousands. They filled the avenue wall to wall, shoulder to shoulder, some sprinting, others crawling, dragging broken legs behind them. Some were fresh, others barely looked human anymore. No faces, no eyes, just red holes where mouths used to be. And they weren't just running now. They were climbing over the previous dead, over barricades, over each other. We opened fire again, but it didn't feel like the first time. That first engagement, it was confusion, adrenaline, reaction. This time, it was method, repetition, mechanical. I pulled the trigger. Juno fed the belt. Bodies fell. Repeat. We burned through a belt in under 20 seconds. Juno screamed over the fire, barrels glowing. "I know," I shouted, but I didn't stop. Not until the feed started jamming and the metal started pinging from the inside like it was screaming back at me. We swapped barrels, second change in under 15 minutes, and the gloves tore when I ripped the mitts on. My fingertips hissed from the steam curling off the chamber. Clem slid another crate up, his face soaked with sweat and grime. "Left side's down," he shouted. "They're breaching Bravo." I looked and saw it, a wall of flesh. They had piled themselves high enough to pour over the sandbags, like a wave made of limbs and teeth. The gunners went under first. Screams. One man dragged out by his legs, kicking. His partner grabbed his vest, pulled so hard the straps snapped. Then he was gone too. A moment later, the tank on that side fired again. Canister round this time. The noise was different, not a boom, but a shriek. 1,000 tungsten pellets sprayed out like a shotgun from hell. Everything in its path turned into vapor. Concrete chipped, metal screamed, blood misted the air so thick it rained red for 3 seconds. But there were still more. Radio chatter turned into chaos. "They're over the wall. Use grenades. Claymores if you... Fuck. No, 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 they're inside. They're climbing over the bodies." Delaney was shouting now, trying to cut through it all. "Hold. All units hold. Keep the bridge clear. Do not let them through." Then we lost emplacement 3. I didn't see the breach, but I heard it. The M240 went silent. Then came the screaming, wet, choking, and a body flew over the sandbags, landing face down in the blood pool between us and the tanks. He twitched once, twice, then went still. Juno was crying now, quietly, not panicked, just leaking tears he didn't seem to notice. "I don't want to be eaten, man," he said. I didn't either, but we were running out of options. The tank on our right rotated, coaxial, spinning up again, and mowed down another column of undead pushing toward the gap. They'd started swarming wrecked cars and buses on the avenue, climbing them, using the elevation to launch down into our nests. That's when I saw the first of the fast ones. It jumped, leapt off a sedan like it didn't care about landing, twisted in the air, and landed on the bags. I fired before I even processed it. Full burst. The thing split open, spine cracking backward, but I'd already emptied half the belt on reflex. 2 more followed it. Juno cut one down with the saw, screaming through his teeth. The other one landed on Clem. I don't remember grabbing my sidearm. I just remember the sound of the hammer dropping and the mess it made of its skull. That was the moment something clicked in all of us. We weren't defending the city. We weren't protecting civilians. We were protecting something else. Because if this was really about saving people, why were we never given a retreat plan? Why did the tanks only face outward? Why was back the only direction we couldn't go? The breach was loud. Not like an explosion, not even gunfire. It sounded like wood snapping, sharp and wrong, followed by screams that didn't rise so much as fold in on themselves, like they were being choked off mid-breath. Juno froze at the sound. His eyes went wide, then immediately darted to our left, where the third emplacement had just disappeared behind a wall of bodies. We couldn't even see the gunners anymore, just arms flailing above the sandbags. Then nothing. Silence. And then the feeding started. That sound. Chewing. It's the one I hear most in my sleep now. Delaney's voice came through the radio, not shouting, just clear. They're in the line. Keep your sectors tight. Claymores, grenades. Keep them out. Ramirez was already moving. He slapped a claymore against the concrete median and pulled the wire tight back to our bags. Backblast left, he warned. Seconds later, click, foom. The explosion painted the concrete red. The bodies behind the blast staggered, but didn't fall. The ones in front were paced. We started throwing grenades overhand down the slope. Not to kill, that was impossible now. Just to slow them, to buy seconds. I saw a woman in a tattered sundress crawl over the remains of a fallen soldier, her left arm dangling by a tendon, her face half torn away. She moved like she didn't know what pain was. Ramirez tried to shoot her, but his rifle jammed. I turned my fire toward her and the group following. The rounds chewed through them, but again, not fast enough. "We can't keep this up," Juno shouted. "We're out of grenades, down to one crate." He was right. My shoulder felt like it had been beaten with a pipe. My teeth hurt from the concussive rhythm of the gunfire. My ears had stopped ringing, which somehow felt worse. The sound of them got louder, like they were surrounding us. A figure launched over the sandbags and landed in our nest. Not shuffled, not climbed, launched. It was a kid, maybe 10, jeans shredded, fingers raw from crawling. His mouth was open too wide. His eyes were gone, just wet sockets. He screeched like an animal and went for Juno. Juno hesitated, just a second. That's all it took. The thing clamped its teeth into his neck and ripped. I watched the blood spray out in 2 thick spurts, bright under the floodlight. Juno screamed, fell back, and started convulsing. Ramirez lost it. He dropped his rifle, grabbed his entrenching tool, and buried it into the kid's skull again and again and again, until the sound stopped. The handle snapped off on the 3rd hit. Then Ramirez sat down beside Juno, both of them shaking, blood pooling between their boots. I turned. Another one was climbing the bags. I drew my sidearm and fired point blank into its face. The skull split in 2. Bone fragments landed on my vest. I didn't even flinch. We were past flinching. The tank to our left moved, not rotated, moved. Treads shrieking, it lurched forward onto the bridge, crushing the corpses beneath it like garbage bags. Its turret rotated and fired a canister round at point-blank range into the breach line. I saw a dozen zombies explode like meat balloons. The other tank followed suit, closer this time. Its 50 cal opened up, sweeping the area directly in front of our position. We had to duck behind the bags to avoid the spray. I peeked back up in time to see another soldier, someone from the far right nest, running toward us, full sprint. His left arm was missing from the elbow down. He screamed something I couldn't hear, eyes wild. A fast one tackled him mid-run. They tumbled together, and we lost sight of him behind the barricade. The screaming stopped a second later. That was the moment Ramirez stood up. He didn't say anything, just walked over to Juno, who was still alive, barely, and knelt beside him. Juno was gasping, blood bubbling out of his mouth. His eyes were still aware, still begging. Ramirez pulled his pistol. "I got you, hermano," he whispered. "One shot. Clean." He didn't look at me afterward. He just reloaded and turned to face the breach. We were running out of time. Ammo down to scraps, our position surrounded on 3 sides, both tanks now firing every 30 seconds, switching between HE and canister rounds like they were sweeping floors, not streets. I looked out at the horde and felt something I hadn't felt since basic. Dread, the kind that fills you slow, sits in your chest like lead, tells you you are not getting out of this. And worse, no one ever expected you to. Because that's when I noticed the rear was empty. The vehicles behind the tanks, gone. Flatbeds, trucks, Humvees. No one said a word about it. No call over the net. No engines starting. Just gone. Ramirez saw it too. "They left," he said flatly. "No," I muttered, lying to both of us. "They relocated. Maybe they fucking left." And now it was just us. 2 tanks, 100 yards of sandbags, and whatever was still coming out of the city like rats from a fire. The radio crackled. Delaney's voice came through again. Quiet, calm, like he was talking to ghosts. "If you're hearing this, you're still breathing. That's good. That means you've still got something to give. Hold this line until you can't. Then hold it some more. Because behind us, they've already started pulling out. And if we fall, the flood gets through. You know what that means." He paused. "I'm sorry we weren't told, but we know now." Then silence. The bridge groaned. Concrete cracked somewhere behind us. The tanks rumbled forward again, barrels swinging into new positions. Their engines roared like they were angry now. We stood, me, Ramirez, maybe 5 others left along the line. No more illusions, no more rules of engagement. Just steel, smoke, and the will to make them earn every fucking inch. We didn't notice when the moon came out. Too much smoke, too much blood in the air. It just got darker. That kind of pitch where shadows stop existing because everything is shadow, where muzzle flashes become your only light. The tanks were the only reason we weren't dead yet. Their engines snarled constantly now, coke seals rattling every time something got too close to the line. When the barrels fired canister rounds, they lit the street up in flashes of orange flame, revealing a carpet of moving bodies. Just an ocean of torsos, limbs, twitching wreckage stacked 6 deep across the avenue. I stopped seeing faces. They weren't people anymore. They were just volume. We lost another nest just after midnight. I only saw part of it. A shape climbed up and pulled one of the gunners straight over the bags. The second one stood up to help, and that's when a dozen hands dragged him down too. They didn't even scream. The only sound was the wet pop of flesh being torn apart, and the rattle of the gun falling silent. Delaney's voice cut in again, lower now, like he was running out of whatever kept him upright. New orders, you hear me? There are none. Hold or don't, but no one's coming. He didn't say, good luck. He didn't need to. Ramirez pulled what was left of Juno's kit into a pile and started loading the spare belts into a duffel. He hadn't said much since he put Juno down. Just worked. He handed me one of the belts, his hands trembling but steady enough to feed. They're piling up out there, he muttered, using the bodies like stairs. He was right. We saw it every time the tanks fired. The dead were no longer a barrier. They were a ramp. The horde had figured it out, not like animals, but like time, like gravity. If they couldn't go through us, they'd just go over. One tank reversed 10 feet and fired again. Canister shells shredded the pile, sent limbs flying like someone tipped over a butcher's table. Didn't matter. They kept coming. One of the Abrams engines started sputtering. I heard it choke, then cough, then die. The crew inside didn't move. Maybe they were dead. Maybe they were just done. The remaining tank surged forward instead. No orders, no warning, just metal grinding against pavement as it drove straight over the bodies into the breach. Its treads screamed. Flesh and bone exploded beneath it. The gunner on top opened fire with the 50 cal, like he was trying to carve space out of pure noise. And it worked, for a second. That stretch of bridge lit up like daylight. Dozens of hostiles exploded under the fire. Others slipped and fell in the gore-slick street. But the tank was alone. Ramirez and I held what was left of emplacement 2. No more grenades. 1 belt, 2 rifles, 4 magazines between us. Bodies were pressing the wall now, not climbing, just leaning, their weight forcing the sandbags inward. We kicked and shot and stabbed. At some point, I was swinging my helmet like a hammer, cracking skulls just to keep the line from caving. One of them grabbed my boot, wouldn't let go even with 2 fingers missing. Ramirez stomped its face in and kicked the rest back over the bags. We were drenched, not just in sweat, in blood, viscera. Bits of someone's tongue was stuck to my glove. We didn't have time to feel it. Then it happened. Emplacement 1 gave out. Too many, 1 too many. The wall collapsed, sandbags spilling, concrete snapping. The gunner went under instantly. His assistant fell back, drew a pistol, got 3 shots off before they swarmed him. I saw his hand go up, then disappear. "We gotta fall back," I shouted. "To where?" Ramirez yelled. "There's nothing behind us." He wasn't wrong. The bridge sloped up toward the highway, and it was empty. Just scattered brass, an abandoned Humvee, and a wide open sky. No more trucks, no more tanks. We were it. The last tank rolled up beside us, its treads spraying bone and shell casings. The commander on top was firing the 50 like his soul depended on it. Then he stopped, not jammed, just stopped. He looked down at us, eyes hollow under his helmet. "We're out," he said. "What?" I shouted. He held up a single belt of 50 cal, barely half loaded. "That's it. No more in the racks." "Where's your crew?" "One dead, one turned." Then he pointed behind us. "Orders just came through. Fall back. Blow the road. We're done." Ramirez didn't move, just stared down the funnel. 11 fucking hours, he said, more to himself. We held this goddamn bridge for 11 hours. Then he turned and spit. "And now we run." The tank reversed slowly. We followed it, me and Ramirez, the last two from our gun nest. The blood on our uniforms had dried like paint. Our boots slipped on the gore-slick pavement. We passed the other nests, empty, ripped open, bits of gear and guts still twitching under the heat. I tried not to look. I had to look. Some of those guys were cracking jokes with me 6 hours ago. Now they were just pieces. We made it to the far side. Someone, an engineer maybe, had already rigged demolition charges to the understructure. They were glowing red under the bridge's belly, blinking steadily like little heartbeats. Ramirez looked at me, breath ragged. "They're still coming." He was right. We could see the wave coming over the bags now, crawling across the bridge like a black tide. Dozens, hundreds, maybe more. And behind them, fire. The city had gone red. Whole blocks were burning. Gas lines ruptured. Power lines down. The sky was choked with black clouds that turned orange when the wind blew right. "We were never meant to hold this," I muttered. Ramirez didn't answer. He just turned and walked toward the waiting truck. The truck didn't have doors, just metal benches and an open back. Ramirez and I climbed in without a word. A third soldier sat near the cab, helmet off, blood soaking through his flak. I didn't recognize him, didn't ask his name. He looked at us, said nothing, and turned back to staring at his boots. Behind us, the bridge crackled. Explosives laced across the structure were already primed. One engineer stood off to the side, his thumb on a detonator like he was waiting for a ghost to give him the okay. The tank was the last thing across. Its treads squealed over the mangled pavement, every inch of its hull caked in gore. The commander on top didn't look at us. He just sat there, belt fed through the 50, one hand on the grip, the other on the remains of a cigarette. The truck pulled away slowly. No one spoke, just the quiet rumble of an engine that didn't belong in a graveyard. We rode for 15 minutes through the evacuation zone. No traffic, no movement, just deserted streets and storefronts with busted glass. A gas station smoldered in the distance, pumps still pouring fire into the sky. Somewhere behind it, a child's bicycle lay on its side in the middle of the road, untouched by ash, but soaked in blood. I stared at it too long. Ramirez nudged me. "Don't," he muttered. That was the first thing either of us had said in 20 minutes. We stopped at what looked like an old city maintenance lot. Barbed wire fences, shipping containers, a few pre-positioned vehicles, and pallets of ammo, piled to the sky. M240 belts, 50 cal boxes, mortar shells, spare barrels, explosives, all fresh, all unopened. No guards, no officers, just stockpiled, waiting. My stomach sank. "They fucking planned for this," Ramirez said. He didn't say it like a realization. He said it like a fact we'd been avoiding all night. We got out. The engineer truck peeled away, heading back into the dark, probably to wire up another choke point, another group of soldiers, another meat grinder. I walked over to the nearest stack of crates. Stamped in bold black letters was "High Priority, Stage 2. Do not deploy until 0800. I checked my watch. It was 5:37. "Stage 2, I whispered. Ramirez crouched by one of the crates and peeled it open with a crowbar. Inside, brand new rifles, M4s, clean, oiled, untouched, stacked, 6 deep. Under them, med kits. Under those, body bags. He stood up and kicked the crate shut. "They knew," he said, flat. "They knew." There was a small folding table set up in the back corner of the lot. A single folder sat on top. It was already open, like someone had left it for us. Across the front page, Viraclean was stamped in big, bold red. I shouldn't have read it. I read it anyway. Project Urban Deterrent Containment. Sacrificial Interdiction Unit, Bridge 12. Objective: delay until 0600 hours. Minimum 80% casualty acceptable. I felt something crack inside me. Not physically, not even mentally, just something human. Ramirez didn't ask what I saw. He didn't need to. I handed him the page, and he didn't flinch. "Knew it," he muttered. Then after a moment, "They used us to buy time for the real evac." The silence settled back in, not peaceful, just thick, like everything around us was watching. We sat on the ground, backs against the crates, weapons still in our laps. My gloves were stiff with dried blood. My uniform had gone cold and heavy. Every inch of my body felt like it had been scraped out with a wire brush. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ramirez didn't look much better. His eyes were bloodshot. One side of his jaw was starting to swell. From what? I didn't know. Maybe one of the fast ones got a hit in. Maybe he'd done it himself. Then the medics arrived, 3 of them. Civilian contractors by the look of it. No uniforms, just white jumpsuits with company logos I didn't recognize. They didn't speak. They walked through the lot quietly, scanning us with handheld devices, marking the ones who needed evaluation. One of them paused in front of Ramirez, stared at the blood on his sleeves, then scribbled something on a tablet and moved on. I asked them where command was. They didn't answer, just moved to the next soldier and started taking pulse readings. One of the crates near us was labeled Subject Disposal Handling Required. I didn't open it. I didn't want to know what was inside. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the sky had begun to pale. And that's when we heard it, from the north, a sound like ripping canvas, long, groaning, rolling down the streets like thunder. Ramirez sat up straighter. His hand went to his rifle on instinct. "They're not done," he said. And he was right. We'd survived the first wave. We'd held the bridge. But it hadn't stopped the tide. It had only slowed it. We didn't talk much after that sound. Just sat there, letting our gear soak through with morning damp. The sky shifted from black to gray, and with it came a sick sort of clarity. That mental fog lifting just enough to see how bad it really was. I didn't know how many we'd killed. Hundreds, thousands. Didn't matter. Because now, with the sunlight creeping over the rooftops, I could finally see what we hadn't killed. And it was worse. They came out of the alleys first. Thin streams of movement shambling between broken cars and burned-out storefronts. No panic, no aggression, just movement. Then the rooftops. I shit you not. They were dropping from roofs like animals, bones snapping on impact, only to crawl back up, dragging themselves forward on shattered limbs. By the time the sun was fully up, the street was full. Every inch, an entire city's worth of bodies, shoulder to shoulder, wall to wall, pouring toward the bridge like they'd been waiting for daylight to make their entrance. No tactics, no formation, just momentum. Tens of thousands. The tank commander saw it first. He stood on his hull, hands hanging limp at his sides. The 50 cal sat silent. No more belts left. His eyes followed the movement down the street, like he was trying to find a seam in the wave. There wasn't one. "We're not holding this," Ramirez said beside me. Not a question, just a statement. Calm, resigned. We'd spent the night buying time, but time had run out. The first wave hit the barricades like surf on rocks, bodies slamming against steel, folding over fences, tumbling into razor wire. The second wave climbed over them. The third bridged the gap. I fired until my magazine clicked empty, slapped another in, fired again. My shoulder was numb. My ears were gone. My vision blurred at the edges from smoke and fatigue. Ramirez was beside me, yelling something I couldn't hear, voice shredded raw, before swinging his entrenching tool into the face of something that looked like a woman in scrubs. The tank rolled forward, not charging, just moving, treads grinding over corpses so thick they didn't even slow it down. The commander manned the cokes and let loose, but it was like pouring a cup of water on a wildfire. Then he did something I didn't expect. He turned the turret, not toward the horde, toward the bridge. "He's gonna blow the charges," I said. Ramirez looked up. "He's cutting the road, with us still on it." The commander gave us one look, a nod, like he was sorry. Then the main gun fired. The round hit the far support column. Concrete erupted. The bridge lurched beneath our feet. Then another shell. Then the detonator. A roar. The kind that rips the air out of your lungs. The ground dropped away. Everything shook like God had cracked the earth open. The horde stumbled. Some fell, but most just kept coming. We ran. There's no heroism in that. We didn't cover each other. We didn't shout clever lines or make a last stand. We just ran, over dead friends, through collapsed fencing, past burning vehicles and blood-slick pavement. The bridge behind us was folding in on itself, one tank crushed beneath falling concrete, the other buried in a landslide of flesh and steel. The last thing I saw was the commander, still standing on the hull, going under with his weapon still raised. We made it 3 blocks before Ramirez collapsed, face down, breathing like his lungs were full of glass. I dropped beside him, dragged him into a busted storefront, and braced the door with a pipe. He looked up at me. Half of his face was crusted with ash and dried blood. "How long you think we bought 'em?" he asked. I didn't answer, because I didn't know. We sat in silence for a long time. The moaning never stopped. It got louder, closer, like the city was filling with it, like it would never stop. When the sun finally cleared the horizon, I climbed to the roof of that little store. Not to get a better view, just to see it, the city, what was left of it. Flames danced across rooftops. Gunfire echoed from far-off towers. Smoke rose in twisting columns that looked like hands reaching for the sky. And below it all, moving with the patience of rot and hunger, was the horde. Still coming. Endless. I sat down, rifle across my lap. Ramirez was downstairs, coughing in his sleep, and I realized something. We didn't survive the battle. We just outlived it. For now.